The clue is in the name for the Pluto Trigger. It's a small device that sits on top of your camera and is designed to trigger your camera in a variety of ways. Personally speaking, I bought it to photograph lightning because that is one of its main modes, but it can also trigger your camera using everything from sound to lasers. I've owned it for 3 years now, but a recent electrical storm provided an excellent opportunity to document the use of the trigger in a real-world environment, specifically the doorway of a public toilet. Prior to buying the Pluto Trigger, I used to take my lightning photos the old-fashioned way, which relies heavily on luck. That old method is very hit and miss. You shoot continuously in interval mode and use a small aperture in order to leave the shutter open for as long as possible. It's basically down to good luck, whether or not your shutter is open at the time of a lightning bolt, and you also end up with thousands of photos of nothing. But with the old Pluto Trigger, luck is mostly removed from the equation because it has a heap of cool sensors built into it that make your camera a little bit smarter. It can detect sudden changes in the sky, and on seeing that big change, for instance when a large lightning bolt appears, it can trigger the camera. There are several advantages to this process, not least of which is it's a lot less hit and miss. Rather than relying on luck with the old method of keeping your shutter open, this can take a photograph only when there's an actual lightning strike. Another advantage of this is that you can change the settings to capture faster exposures of the lightning, meaning that you can get more detail in the image and therefore hopefully a cleaner shot. The Pluto Trigger is extremely easy to set up and works in conjunction with an accompanying app which you install on your phone. The device slots into the hot shoe on your camera and then uses a supplied adapter to connect from the side to the camera's shutter release. These cables are specific to your camera model and you specify which type you require when you buy the Pluto Trigger, but it's a standard cable and you can buy a different type should you change camera model. Having attached the Pluto Trigger to your camera and connected the cable from the device to the shutter release, you can then connect the app. It uses a low energy Bluetooth connection in order to conserve power. Once you've added your trigger to the app, you can then control the various modes and settings. This is what those settings look like. So let's do a little run through on the modes that you get on the Pluto Trigger. And at its most basic, it's actually a really useful mode. It's just standard shutter release. You can simply tap the button to take a photo, or you can pre-focus, or you can hold down the button to open the shutter up as long as possible, or you can lock it off. You've got bulb mode, burst mode, and timer all built in. Incredibly flexible little mode. And we also have in the intervalometer section, we've got a time lapse. Again, you can change everything in here from the delay to the interval to how many shots. So you can say how much time you want the time lapse to run for. You can just say, I want it to run for this many shots. It's entirely up to you. Got an HDR mode. I mean, most cameras come with bracketing, but often it's only 3 photos. You can't change it. At least it is on my Fuji. It may be different on other brands. Probably is on a Sony. You can probably do 500. On here, you can set as many of those bracketed images you want. Got a star trail mode here. So it'll keep the shutter open, let the stars kind of drag the trails out while you're doing the long exposure. You can set the gap, how long delay you want between the different photos. Very handy. I've also got a video mode there. So let's get out of there. And we've also got the sensor modes. And we've got here a laser. So it comes with a little laser. I must admit, I've had this thing for 2 years and I've lost the laser. I never used it anyway. But it's a little laser fires out a beam towards the front of the Pluto trigger, and when that beam is broken, it takes a photograph. So you could use it for things like, I don't know, dropping things through the path of it, or I don't know, wildlife or something like that. We've got a sound trigger here, so you can ramp up the sensitivity of this and it will take a photograph when a certain sound level is reached. We've got light, again, same deal. When it gets hit by a light of some kind, for instance, if it's in a dark room and the bulb came on, it would fire the trigger. What else have we got here? Yes, lightning. So here's the lightning mode, and this is actually the only mode I bought this for, and it's actually the one I use far and away the most. I have used some of the shutter release modes, but mainly I use this. And the way it works is you've got this dial here in the center, which is the sensitivity. So it detects differences in light in the sky, and depending on how sensitive or unsensitive it is, it will fire the trigger. So you tune it, basically. You take it out and you watch how many photographs are being taken at a certain sensitivity. If it's taking too many when lightning is not happening, you just dial back and eventually you arrive at a sweet spot. Normally it's around that sort of 12 o'clock point on the dial. That's usually where I start, but it's very easy to get going. We've also got infrared. We've got droplet. So it will detect water droplet coming through and fire the shutter. We've got an auxiliary, which is basically there's a little slot on the side of the Pluto trigger where you can plug in something like one of those little Raspberry Pis or something like that and use incredibly advanced kind of sensors if you want. I've also got fusion mode here, which is where you combine some of those. So you can have all those different sensors I mentioned before. You know, when this light is reached and there's sound, then do this, fire the trigger. So that's pretty neat. But there's more. It goes on. You've got a sound, vibration, we've got motion, we've got distance. So if you're sticking the camera in the car with this plugged in, you can say, record a time lapse until I've done 5 miles, something like that. We've also got voice. So you can tell it to trigger when you say Pluto trigger. You've got a smile option here. We've also got various tools in here. The depth of field calculator, very handy. Solar calculator telling you where the sun is in the sky. We choose sun, sunrise or sunset. ND filter calculator, so you can work out exactly how many stops of light you're going to take down, how long your exposure should be when you put an ND filter on your camera. And we've got the old Starscape rule, the 500 rule, so you can work out how long to leave the exposure, the shutter open to take a crisp star photograph as opposed to a star trail. It's a pretty amazing package, isn't it? And now I'd like to show you what it's like using the device in the real world. We had a punchy line of storms blow overhead here a few weeks ago, and I decided at the last minute to document it for you guys so you can see what it's like using the Pluto trigger under real-world circumstances. The footage, I apologise, isn't the best because I was dodging heavy rain, lightning bolts and mosquitoes. I think it gives you a sense of how the Pluto trigger performs when the conditions are less than ideal. You join me as I am out photographing an epic thunderstorm rolling over the top of the village I live in here in South Coast, New South Wales. I thought I'd just do a little video showing you the setup. So I'm down here with my Fujifilm X-T4 and I'm actually standing on the public toilets here down by the river, and there's a beautiful thunderstorm rolling right over us at the moment. In fact, there's a whole string of thunderstorms, a line of electrical storms running north to south. I'll do a recording from windy.app and show you what it looked like. Pretty incredible stuff. Anyway, I thought it was about time I took some lightning photographs. So I have got the Pluto trigger running on the X-T4. So you set up your camera, you choose an aperture, you manually focus, you plug the little Pluto trigger into the remote on the side of the camera and you leave it to it. It's pretty neat. It saves trying to, you know, stab the shutter finger and try and second guess when it's going to happen. So let me see if I can show you what's going on without buggering up my photo. Here is the camera, here's the Pluto trigger, on the top, and that connects by a wire down to the side here, plugged into the back of the camera. And when it detects a light, you can see the flashing green light there that shows, oh, there we go. There was a changing light and it took a photograph. That was just something lighting up the cloud. It wasn't a crawler or forked lightning, but still pretty nice. Well, it has to be said, I'm catching some pretty nice shots here. And a few of you guys were asking me if I had used the little battery that I reviewed in a previous video in the real world, and funnily enough I've actually had to plug it in now because the camera's been running so long that we're running out of batteries, and rather than miss the opportunity of a nice shot, I've plugged it in. So what I've done, I'll show you, spin you around. Got the little bag that the battery came in here, just came off the side of the tripod there, and the plug straight in the USB. And if you look at the back of the camera, you can see the little power icon that says that we're drawing power. So now I don't have to worry at all about losing power. I can keep this thing running all bloody night if I wanted to on this 25,000 milliamp hour 100-watt battery. It certainly saves mucking around switching out batteries and stuff, getting the camera off the tripod and all that bollocks. So anyway, you were asking the real world usage of things like that battery pack, and here I am using it a couple of days after I put that video online. Let me show you my setup here. Fellow Australians will recognise the bottle called Mozzie spray. I'm down by the river. I was getting absolutely savaged by the bloody mozzies and the sandflies, so I've lathered that all over my body. Sweet relief too. Got plenty of drinking water. Got me new bag over here, which is the Wandered, can't remember the name of it. It's a 9-litre bag. I ditched the Peak Designs. I've got a new bag. So I've got this set up on the little wash basins here outside the public toilet block, and I'm nicely undercover out of the rain, so I can set the tripod up, and it's really very comfortable indeed. Here's the situation at the moment. As you can see, I don't know if it fell up too well on the phone here, got this amazing long line of storms running down the coast. The little blue dot is where I am, and I've got the camera pointed out towards the ocean, sort of south, what am I doing, south easterly direction. And it has to be said, I've got some very nice shots so far. The lightning trigger connects to your phone by means of Bluetooth, of course, and the way it works is you've got this little dial here you can see in the center, and before you press the play button to set it going, you adjust the sensitivity of the lightning so that it's not catching false positives. It's a very simple process. I've just left it at the default, which is kind of like at the 12 o'clock position on that dial, and it's catching some very nice bolts of lightning indeed, and there's no way on earth that I'd have been able to capture them had I not had this device and the camera, the little Pluto Trigger. Just had to alter the sensitivity settings of the Pluto Trigger because it's now completely pitch black. Also had to change all the settings on the camera because we were getting into some super long exposure times, like 30 seconds. Opened up the aperture as far as I can go on the super wide, which is f4, and that's keeping the exposure times down to the best I can get, which is about 10 seconds I think at the moment. I think I've got a few really nice shots in the bag. The only thing that can make this evening even better would be someone remove the smell of the chemical toilet cleaner wafted gently through the balmy summer Australian air. Quite a few of you guys found my little channel through my review of the Arsenal Pro smart device, and in the comments I was regularly asked if there was some device I did recommend. Well, the Pluto Trigger is my answer. The deal with this device is it doesn't dumb down photography and remove the craft from it the way that the Arsenal Pro tried and colossally failed to do. Instead, It simply extends the capabilities of your camera. It's about as far removed from the AI the Arsenal Pro claim to use, and relies instead on basic engineering principles. You still need to be a good photographer to get the most out of this device, to understand light, color, and composition, along with the technical stuff such as aperture, focal range, depth of field, dynamic range, and exposure. That is not a bad thing. There aren't any shortcuts to becoming a good photographer. You just need to apply yourself, practice, and learn the technical bits. I love my Pluto Trigger. There's so much versatility crammed into this modest-looking gizmo, and only costs about 180 Australian dollars or 120 US. If you're at all serious about your storm chasing and are looking for a way of reliably photographing lightning, then it comes highly recommended. And as you've seen, with such a wide array of modes, it's one gizmo that won't languish in the darkest recesses of your camera backpack, like some other devices I could mention. And that'll do us for this video. Do you have any external devices for your camera? Perhaps the Myops device, which I've heard is just as good as the Pluto Trigger. Let me know in the comments section below. If you got value from this video, please give it a like and a comment, and consider subscribing to my channel for more photo, video, and drone-related content from me. Till the next time, guys. Ta-ta.